Hello, everybody. I am so excited about today's show. So, I want y'all to come on in. Let me know where you are joining in from. This is Dr. Yolanda, and I am here with you on blackdoctors.org for my mind, body, and stress with Dr. Yolanda. So, you all know that we do this show every month. It's the first Friday of every month, and we always want to just talk about that axis, right? That interconnection between how our minds, our bodies are influenced by the stress that we experience in life. And so many of you know, I talk about it all the time. There's this psychosomatic effect whenever we are experiencing something and it's a lot of stress for our bodies. And it's okay when that stress is a temporary stress. Sometimes it's even a positive, exciting stress. But when we are experiencing prolonged stress, it can be detrimental to us, and it can affect our bodies in very somatic ways in terms of pain, anxiety, depression, and it often also can be associated with things like substance abuse, and other ways that people find themselves trying to cope with this prolonged anxiety and trauma. So we want you to be very aware of that, and so that you can start taking note of what things are happening to you and how you're feeling and how things are stressing you out. On that note, I'm here today to talk briefly about gun violence in America. OMG. Gun violence has had such an upsurge over several years. This isn't new for us. But did you all know that in the last 4 days, from July 2nd to July 5th, we have had 25 shootings in the US in just 4 days? And in 2021, the CDC reported the most, it was apparently the most amount of deaths attributed to guns and gun violence in 2021 at almost 50,000 people. I think the exact number was 48,830 people died by guns and gun violence in 2021. It slightly decreased in 2022, but guys, we are already on track to surpass that if in July, in 4 days alone, we've had these 25 shootings. So real briefly, on July 2nd, there were shootings in Wichita, Kansas, in Bronx, New York, as well as Baltimore, Maryland. There was, and of these 25 shootings, let me finish my thought. 138 people were injured and 24 people were killed. So again, on the second, we had Wichita, Kansas, we had Bronx, New York, we had Baltimore, Maryland. On the third, we had two shootings in Indiana, as well as two shootings in Fort Worth, Texas. We had Philadelphia, Minnesota, and Missouri. On the third, we had, on the fourth, we had shootings in Ohio, North Carolina, Michigan, Louisiana, California, and another one in Maryland. And then on July 5th, there was Flint, Michigan, Paterson, New Jersey, Washington, D.C., Fort Lauderdale, Boston, Massachusetts, Chicago, another one in Maryland, Lansing, Michigan, and Cleveland, Ohio. The reason I'm bringing this up is because it doesn't matter where you go or what you're doing or how you prepared yourself. It is very likely that you or someone you know will be a victim of gun violence. And that used to not be the case. We used to be able to say, well, this person might have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. But now, guys, it's grocery stores. It's your own house, and someone pulls in. You pull into a parking lot or driveway, and someone shoots you because you ask a question. It's churches, it's ballparks, it's anywhere you go, and it's very scary. One thing that I wanted to bring up too is that July is, I don't know if many of you know this, but July is National African American, it's what is it called? Let me say it right. It's National African American Mental Health Awareness Month, right? And we are definitely being affected by this gun violence. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it. Let me say I made that. Oh, Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. That's what it is. Minority. Sorry. I know. So my producer here is Ellis, and he'll throw up what I say. So I want to make that correction. It is National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Now we're going to stop using the word minority. We're going to start using the word because there's nothing minor about us. Yes, our numbers are smaller, but they say the prediction is in 2050 we will be outnumbering some folks, so we can talk about that. But this is for people of color. But right now we're still calling it National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And I don't think that we're prepared for what's coming when it comes to the amount of violence that we're experiencing with guns. Now, the other reason this is important is because we all knew that during the pandemic, the researchers had found that our children and our adolescents had significantly higher levels of emotional and behavior symptoms in all domains, but specifically for anxiety and depression. But what a lot of people don't know and hadn't been talked about is that the suicide rate of our Black teens increased by 120% in the last decade. Why is this happening, right? It's access to these guns, and it's also more stress. We've been talking about it. We could talk about social media stress. We can talk about obviously structural racism and things that are happening, but there's so much going on. And what used to be the top statistic, well, it's still the top statistic, but when we talked about suicide for a long time, it was an older white male in a rural area. Well, that's still the case, but guess what? We're closing the gap on that. And this is not one of the gaps we want to close, but we're closing the disparity gap on where suicide is happening. And that's, again, not one of the things that we're striving for. We want to close a lot of these gaps, but this is not the gap where we're looking to close. From 2011 to 2020, the suicide rates amongst Black, Latino, and Asian teenagers for each more than doubled. For all three of those categories of teens, more than doubled, according to the CDC. And this report was put out in February of 2022. Now, I'm talking about this because first, I have children. They're older. They're 23. They're 21. They're 18. But every time they're away from me, I'm worried that when I see a mass shooting, it doesn't matter where. My son is in California. So when I see something on the news, the first thing I'm doing is picking up that phone. My daughter went to school down in Louisiana. I saw on that statistic report for just those 4 days, Louisiana actually popped up at least 2 times. She's now back in Washington, D.C. I'm not safe there. She's not safe there either, because guess what? Washington, D.C. was on that list. I'm currently doing my show from Harlem, New York. But guess what? The Bronx was on the list. So was Paterson, New Jersey. So it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're down in Texas, if you're in Michigan, Chicago, D.C., all the way in California. It's happening all around the country. And we have to just be vigilant. And we have to start voting, because right now, who is lobbying for this? It's those who are capitalizing off of either selling guns or owning guns for whatever reason, but we're sacrificing our babies. So anyway, who else is out here? I don't know. Let me ask again. If you're here and you're joining us today and you have, you've been affected. I actually had a family member that was affected on a bus going home from work. My nephew had been hit by a gun, was shot. And it was so scary because it's the kid who had never, it wasn't the wrong place at the wrong time. He was getting off of work and he was on his way home. So anybody out here, have you been impacted by gun violence? And trust me, if you haven't yet, I don't want to be somebody who's a prophet, but it will happen. If it's not you, it's going to be somebody you know. So we wanted to talk about it. Now, the reason I brought up this whole issue about gun violence and how it's affecting our mental health is one, because it's top of mind. It's a lot of things that's happened these past few days, just in this month alone, and this first half of the year. Like I said, we're on track to overtake the 2021 statistics. But it also segues into, hey, I see you, Philly. Philly is out of control, Mr. Walter Cargill says. I know, it really is, and it's sad. But I wanted to talk about this because it segues into two guests that I'm bringing on today that I'm extremely excited about to talk to you guys. And as many of you know, at the end of this month will be the launch of something that has been in the works and waiting in the wings for 54 years. What am I talking about? This is the 54th anniversary of Harlem's Cultural Festival. It was held in Harlem in 1969. And then the festival brought over 300,000 people. Just think about that number, first of all. 300,000 people to Harlem. And at the time, it was at the 20-acre Mount Morris Park. And the festival was over several days. It was from June 29th to August 24th. And it was against this backdrop of all of this political and cultural and social change that was happening in America. And so there were all these wonderful artists that had come out. They did it for free. And it was really this sort of healing for the community. It was organized by a young man. He was 30 something at the time. He was from St. Kitts. His name was Tony Lawrence. And what people don't know is in 1969, that was actually the third festival. It started in 67, it had grown. And by 69, when he had this really big festival, I think it was so powerful that particular year because the community was really just trying to heal from so much that had happened, right? So we had all the assassinations. Really, it started earlier than that, but you had Medgar Evers, you had Martin Luther King, and Martin Luther King had just been you had Malcolm first, who was from Harlem, and then Martin was just a year before that. So there was all of this stuff going. There's all these these upheavals, these riots, and things were happening. And Mr. Tony Lawrence had the vision to have this festival, and what the effect of it was, I'm not sure if it was always what he was thinking of, but the effect was there was this healing in the music and in the community when everybody came out for this very peaceful, wonderful, multi-day festival. So now we are here and we are experiencing these two great, we have three co-founders, but I have two of them on the call with me today, or on the show with me today. And these new leaders in the Harlem community have taken up the mantle and they put the work behind the vision to usher in this another age of healing. But this is different. It's healing, it's accountability, it's prosperity. They have a whole vision for what they're calling the reimagining of this Harlem. Now it's the Harlem Festival of Culture. And so we want to hear all about it. I really wanted to have them on the show because, again, that festival is the end of this month. So we are about to witness history, y'all. And so on that note, I want to welcome my two guests. We have Mr. Musa Jackson, and he's going to tell yourselves about him in a minute. And we have Mrs. Nicoa Evans Hendricks. So they are coming on into the studio. Y'all, long time no see for these folks. I see them, actually quite often. And shout out to Nicola's husband, Garrett Hendricks he's been in a movie recently, and we did a filming of the movie last night. And it was amazing. So congratulations to my brother Garrett. This is the reason I'm here in New York. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. But now we're here to do the light and the shine on these two brilliant folks who had the vision to bring back this festival. And so y'all, we're gonna talk to them about it. So I'm gonna have you guys introduce yourselves, and then we're just gonna ask a couple questions about this festival and about the vision and about what you want to do and how you want to do it. So share with the people. So who wants to start?
Musa.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Musa Jackson, and I'm the co-founder of the Harlem Festival of Culture. And we'll get into it after. Want just the names right now, or
I mean,
can we go into it?
The story.
Like,
okay.
Who are you? Tell these people who you are and why it's so amazing.
Okay, so listen,
that I have
I'm the co-founder of the Harlem Festival of Culture, and I was at the original festival that took place in 1969. It was the third one, she's right, but it was the most powerful one. And it came on the heels of the assassination of Martin Luther King. And so my community, the community I was born into, I'm fifth generation Harlemite, before the Renaissance. Yeah, we've been here for a long time. And it was really about Black unity. And so I went with my family in 1969. I was 4 years old, very precocious with a photographic memory. It's the very first memory in life. And fast forward to 2019, I got a call in regards to a documentary that's being made about that historic festival. And subsequently, my story became the anchor, the heartbeat of the Oscar-winning documentary Summer of Soul, which had its debut in Harlem on July 2nd of 2021. It won pretty much all the awards up until, since then, up until that point. And, because of what it represented, being brought back, remember, it had been sort of hidden in the brains of people that were there, but not necessarily in the public's imagination. So you really had to be there to understand what this really meant. So having documentation and seeing this incredible community. I tried to describe my community to people. I always describe it from the time I was young, what they were like. But you actually got to see this beautiful community. And once again, yes, over 6 weeks, 6 Sundays in the summer of '69, 300,000 people showed up. And some of the greatest acts of the day made their appearance, from Nina Simone to Stevie Wonder to Gladys Knight and the Pips to the Fifth Dimension, Sly and the Family Stone, Mavis Staples and Mahalia Jackson. I mean, the lineup was incredible and memorable. But it also happened in the same year that another festival would take place later, that the end of the summer, and it was called Woodstock. And of course, as you know, when you have an incredible festival with Black folks in the 60s, the most important thing to do was to hide it. That's the truth. And that's why you did not know of the the festival of Harlem Cultural Fest at the time, because Woodstock happened. Nowhere near as magnificent as our festival, and I'll say that because I can. But you had, ironically, Jimi Hendrix, who headlined Woodstock, the most memorable act of Woodstock is Jimi Hendrix. Could not get into the Harlem Festival of Culture because we had BB King.
Right.
Okay, who was the absolute legend
Right.
guitar of that time.
Right.
So he was a king, and he tried to get on board to our festival, but it didn't happen. And so, saying all of it to say, here we are, coming, bringing it full circle. 54 years later, 2 years. It's 2 years this month in the making, and Nicola Evans, who's here, will speak on it, and myself. I think I'm frozen. I see
But
my
we
mouth
see you.
open.
We see you.
You see me? Okay. Um, okay. Anyway, we brought it back for the people because it was important, that something this magnificent could happen. It should happen for the community and all the community. This is Black history. This is Black culture. It's bigger than Harlem. It's bigger than one person. It's about us. So I'm excited to be at this moment where we're reimagining it. What would it look like in 2023, and then it'll be an annual event. And
Well, we're
you
gonna get
know,
into a little bit more about like what it will be and what your visions
yeah,
are in just a second. I want
yeah.
Nicola Evans, Harlem Festival of Culture founder, to introduce herself and a little bit about again what this moment means to you as well.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I am Musa's co-founder in Harlem Festival of Culture. And, Musa and I have known each other for 24 years, actually, when I moved to New York in 99 and really began doing work here in Harlem. So for the opportunity for me to be a co-founder really ties back to that moment when I met him 24 years ago, because my landing in New York, as someone who had, you know, come from a military family like you, Yolanda, Dr. Yolanda, and had traveled many places, but had not really lived in any one place that was home. My family was my home wherever we lived, but no one place was home. Didn't know it when I arrived in Harlem and met Musa. It's so funny how stars align and it's a full circle moment that this would be my home, and that 24 years later I would be working with him to bring back a legacy like the original Harlem Cultural Festival. To really, for me, it's personal. It's paying tribute to the village of Harlem, which has become my home and embraced me as family, and really showed me what community was. Because when I got here, I didn't really fully understand. You hear that word, you don't really know what it means until you live and breathe a community. You live in it, you become a stakeholder in it, and you become a part of the movement to preserve it and to build it. And so once that began happening for me, and I spent the last 24 years here in Harlem doing a lot of work in community development, restaurant and retail development. I'm an entrepreneur, have owned businesses, and currently own businesses in Harlem. So being a part of building the economic base here in Harlem, and fostering that, to be able to bring 30 years of experience under one umbrella with Harlem Festival of Culture and the vision that Musa and I were so aligned on, and seeing each other over the past decade, 2 decades and more, doing the work in the community, both of us doing programming to support businesses and build, community engagement, and celebrating and preserving. Had no idea that it would all sort of converge one day into this opportunity. And it was a calling. It was a call to action, really. We came together out of a call of action, and literally a phone call I made that turned into the call of action for us to do this.
Yeah.
So it's exciting, and for someone like myself, we're such a contrast. He's 100+ year legacy family here in Harlem, and I'm someone who, traveled the world my whole life and didn't necessarily have roots. And for those two kind of opposite experiences come together to create this, which will be an ongoing event and help build the community for the next 54 years and more. It's an honor, and it's something we're really excited about.
I love it. And first of all, so I love the story because I've known Nicola over 30 years as well. And knowing that, when she got here, when she got to Harlem, there was just a lot of energy, right? There was a lot of things to do, and she was so excited. And what's great about knowing someone that long is to see that that excitement has not, it just hasn't waned, right? It's always been there, and it's just been built up, and it's been just put into all these different, and like you say, you put it into all these different areas, and when it all comes together into one space, you're like, wait, wow, I didn't know that I was preparing all of this time to do this, right? This is the thing that God has you all prepared to do. So this is wonderful. I don't know if Musa, are you there? You look
I'm
so
here. No, I'm
okay,
here.
good.
I know it's frozen on the. I
That's
know it's
fine.
frozen on the
Yeah,
screen.
I just
I'm
want to make
definitely
sure.
here.
So
Yep.
one of the questions I had, and I think you touched on it, was the reason for bringing the festival back. So yes, we know the festival was lost. There's 50 years, or more passed. Musa, you were a part of it. And then the idea to say, you know what, hey, we need to do this again in this community at this time. What was sort of the story behind that? Why now? What made you think, you know what, we need to do this? We need to bring this back.
Absolutely. I want to jump in, and then Nicola can assist on this one. So literally, as I mentioned before, July, I remember it like it was yesterday. In July, once the film had debuted, right? July 2nd, it's on Hulu, the whole night, and the whole thing, was taking off, right? Everyone was excited. It was going around the world. And I was on the press junket because I was the star of the film. I get a phone call from Nicola one evening. Now that, we're, like she mentioned before, we've been in each other's lives now for 20 something years doing the work here in Harlem. And Nicole was just doing her due diligence with patent searches, and come to find out that someone, and I don't know if we can mention his name at this point, but someone outside of our community took it upon themselves to think that they were going to bring this festival back. It was a white guy, appropriate our culture and bring it to the masses. And so she called me thinking I was in partnership with this person. Never heard of him before. I'm just, elated and overwhelmed, if you will, by all the attention that the film was getting, and was ready to go on a press junket. So when she mentioned this to me and said, do you know anything? I said, no. We talked to the producers. They said they didn't really know this guy. And it was like, Nicole was like, well, we can't let this happen. And I said, no. I actually said to her, over my dead body. And truth, you're not going to appropriate Harlem, and you're not going to appropriate our culture. And so made the decision at that moment, really honestly, to bring it back. And I said to Nicole, I said, if I'm going to bring this back, it's going to be with you, because I watched her in my community. Okay, I'm one of the gatekeepers, a legacy family. We look at certain people who are doing the work and really shaping our future in our community. And to be truthful, I can really only name a couple of people, and she was one of them. And she called me, and I was like, it was one of the best decisions I ever made, we ever made, to really bring this back. And that was the beginning and really the impetus to bring this back, guys, because it really could have just been a great film. It could have had all this prestige, and then it could have once again faded. But it didn't happen that way. And we look at the ancestors and God and divinity that really brought us, our alignment that really brought us together. And that's really how it began. And it's been since then, we've been able to do some incredible things. And one of the most important things, which I want Nicole to talk about, is for which Dr. Yolanda Lewis Ragland's a part of, which is the Harlem Festival of Culture Foundation. So some amazing things have come out of that. But that's how it began, guys.
And so, Nicole, any parts of that, that you want to sort of like? So, what made you even look that up? Like,
Yeah.
like, wait, hey,
Well,
what's going on? Yeah. So, how did that start?
So as I mentioned, I'm serial entrepreneur, several businesses, and had really was in the process of filing some trademarks. And so I had just gotten a notification for some trademark searches results of a trademark search. And I was literally sitting in the restaurant I co-own, just looking through trademark searches, doing my due diligence, like Musa said. And one of the trademarks that I had was going to file for, it had the name Harlem in it. So anything that was a Harlem trademark came up in the search. So I'm seeing all the businesses in Harlem and I'm like, oh, look. And I'm scrolling through thinking this is great. And so that's when I saw the trademark for Harlem Cultural Festival. Interestingly enough, I know the date. It was July 22nd that I was sitting there doing the search, because immediately I noticed that the trademark had been filed by the other individual on July 15th. So essentially 2 weeks after the film had debuted, this person wasted no time to file the trademark application. And it just so happened that a week after they did, I saw it and was able to contact Musa. And initially, our feeling was his application may be in, but we're going to file one too. And we're going to file immediately so that we can oppose it, because the idea that someone from outside the community, that's not working with anyone in the community, that doesn't represent the community, is going to take this iconic cultural celebration, commercialize it, because it's obviously they saw the success of the film and started seeing dollar signs. And so for us, it was a call to action. And sometimes, activism shows up in different ways. And this was ours. And it was like, we've never produced a music festival on this scale in our lives. What we have done is we know how to engage community. We know how to rally support. We have extensive relationships with the city, and the community support. We know how to build strategy, and we know how to build a team. And we had a vision. We literally met and started hammering out the business plan for this. And that's where the vision came. What was important to both of us, because we had basically been doing social impact work in Harlem, even though we were promoting businesses and marketing, et cetera, everything always had a thread of how does it tie back to the community, and how do you tether it in a way so that there's residual impact. So we were already doing that independently, and have supported each other's programs. So we knew that, Gladys Knight said it in the film. It was always more, it was about more than the music. And we wanted that that was the strategy. How do we make this about more than music? And that means you have to create a parallel strategy that is doing the impact work while you've got the entertainment platform. And how we also knew that a festival like this would draw a lot of attention. Sponsors would want to get involved, and partners. And so there's a lot of resources that would come to the table just by virtue of the fact that it is Harlem and it's iconic and all the things. But how do you ensure that the pass through goes to the community the other 362 days of the year? So the foundation was something that from out the gate, the HFC Foundation, it was important to us that the two strategies were equal. It wasn't a festival that happened to be doing community work. It was it was a social impact venture from the very beginning. So they were equal in standing. And so the foundation was formed so that the festival would be forever tied to the foundation. It supports the foundation, and any partners that we brought in, that sort of mission focus. You want to work with brands, organizations that have a corporate social responsibility mandate. You want to work with people who are focused on the double bottom line of both financial and social. So we wanted to have that baked into it from the beginning. So having the foundation as a part of it lets everyone know that this is not your regular festival. It's not about just ticket sales. Those are important, of course, and we want to sell lots of tickets, but that people understand that the community of Harlem realizes the benefit of this, year round. And so, and that's what we've been committed to, and will always be committed to. That will always be the philosophy.
I love it. So, you guys are answering the questions. I have I got a little bit more of what I wanted to know, which is good. what I also want the people to know too, and you guys, I know the answers to these, so I'm asking the questions more for others, right? But the thing I want people to know is, given that you gave us information about this foundation, what is it that you guys hope to achieve, right? With this particular festival and the foundation that's involved, right? What is it that you want to achieve? For, is it something you're achieving for the Harlem community, or is it also something that you see yourselves achieving for communities beyond Harlem?
Well, I think, it definitely is going to affect the Harlem community, of course, but we're looking at it as a blueprint in terms of how other communities like Harlem will see the success of this and see what they have. Every community, that's like Harlem, Chicago, and Detroit, wherever, Atlanta, they have what we like to say cultural assets, and they have to look at that and see how they can really utilize those and have an impact, a social impact on the community, and really give opportunities to not just have something so beautiful and it fades, but also see how it can actually affect every aspect of the community. In your case, Dr. Yolanda, it's health equity, right? It's our mental well-being, right? But it's also with us, we have three pillars. It's you. I don't know. Oh, okay, we're back. Hey, hi. It's you. It's the youth development. It's economic strategy. I love what I love. We could talk about this all day because what we love about this is just how much it really not only affects Harlem, but we see it as, like I said before, just how it's going to expand globally. This is just the beginning for us, and we're looking at this as, something that we're going to be continuing in different places. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but, look at this model that we're putting out there for your community and really look at what you have. Because that's the one thing when Nicole was doing the search, right? You know, who would have thought that it was even available, Harlem Cultural Festival? So something so amazing like that was even available to be snapped up. And when this other person saw it, he's like, oh, wow, they don't even realize what they have. And so we're just looking at that and what it can do for our community in regards to taking what we have, cultural asset, and expanding and bringing it back into the community so the community thrives.
Yeah, I would just add to that. Our community, our culture has been appropriated and commercialized since the beginning of time, right?
Yep.
Ideas, intellectual property. We haven't been taught to think about our creativity, which comes so natural to our community and cultural communities like ours. It's like the air we breathe, to be creative and innovate. And people, we haven't been taught that our ideas, just our brain power, that's an asset, right? So when you've got that kind of creativity in these communities, that they don't realize it needs to be protected. It's called intellectual property for a reason. And so we're, as Musa said, we're hoping that there are communities all around the country that are producing cultural festivals that probably go back decades, that they haven't trademarked. There are communities that have landmarks or legacies, that institutions that if you did a search, the name is still available, should not be. There are a number of ways in which, as a community, people need to be checking, and whichever institutions are in place, to ensure that there's another trademark that we filed for another legacy institution here in Harlem,
Mm-hmm.
that we were shocked was available. And
Mm-hmm.
it's these kind of things that, just as it's not second nature for us to think about that kind of ownership. And it correlates directly with economic growth, and advancement, right? Because when you own, whether it's a physical asset like real estate or intellectual property, I mean, intellectual property rights are extremely valuable. Look at our history with our, you talk about the musicians that were at the original Harlem Cultural Festival. That
Mm-hmm.
era in the music industry, those artists got robbed. Like a lot
Yes.
of them didn't own the intellectual property rights to the songs they
Their
sang,
own songs.
that
Yeah.
they were on stage singing. They didn't even own the songs they sang, right? So
Right.
you've got this huge festival happening 54 years ago with all of that talent, and somebody else was cashing in on their content, right? So it's things like that that are important, and this is just one example, but we hope that through the model we're creating here, other communities like Harlem, and just not just Black communities, we're talking about cultural communities, to really think about what you're bringing, your innovation, and just making sure that it's protected such that that community can leverage it for their advancement. And that's really what it comes down to. And this is in its infancy. It allows you to explore a lot of the areas that we as a culture can advance our communities, because the innovation that we've brought across every sector, a lot of times it's very vulnerable to being appropriated.
Absolutely. And the reason, so y'all, so cat out the bag. I'm so excited about this and so involved in this and making sure y'all know about this because I am, as Musa said, because of this festival. So again, Nicole and I have known each other over 30 years, and we've had these conversations of, how does, and most of us know that economics is tied to health and wellness. If you can't afford to keep yourself healthy, then guess what? When you're not, you can't get to work. You can't work as much as you want, need to. You can't get to where you're going to. So that's one thing. But guess what? If you can't afford to keep yourself healthy, rather, then you won't be healthy, and then you can't work. If you can't work, then you can't make the money that you need for your livelihood, right? So the two are married. And we talked about this for years about how we were going to figure out some type of programming. And, you just knew that it was going to happen once you're how. We talked about development in other countries, women's groups, all kinds of stuff. Not that we're not going to do it. I think there's still a million things I want to do and will achieve in my lifetime. But those two things were tied together. And so when this festival and the foundation was formed, the ideas that came out of it, first of all, are just phenomenal. And we're going to talk in a minute, like, how is this festival different than others, right? But with the foundation, those three pillars that Lusa mentioned are health and wellness, or the health equity. We have the economic growth and development. And the one thing we haven't mentioned that y'all are going to find out is there's the youth development part of this, right? Because we have to for our youth. Most of us know that we're mentors. Nakoa and Musa have been mentors for years in their community. For even some of the adults in their community, they're mentors, right? For them, because we got to show people a path and give them tools and grow them so that then they can now do this on their own. Well, our youth need us. Our youth need to know all about their economics. They need to know about their health and wellness. They need to know about how to grow their community. They need to understand, information about their own desires and what career paths they want to take. There's so many things that they need from us. And so we're so excited that we have the youth component as well. But I'm here and associated with the festival and the foundation as the director of health equity and community impact, because it is so obvious that the two are connected. And so it was just such an amazing thing for me to finally get here and go, oh my God, this all comes together. Like everything we've been doing for the past 30 years in each one of our spaces just is going to be served. The community will be served well for that. So on that note, we're talking about how not most festivals, I don't know many festivals that have a foundation, associated with them. I don't know many festivals whose ideas or thoughts and their purpose is really to impact the communities that they're coming to, right? We know they impact the communities, but we don't know that that's their actual part of their DNA was
Right.
figuring out what they were going to do in their communities. So that being said, when we talk about the Harlem Festival of Culture and the Harlem Festival of Culture Foundation, when we want people to come to this festival, what makes the festival different, and I'm saying it, without, like, obviously, but this is what we want people to know is what makes this festival different.
I'm
Mhm.
to jump in first is that, Nicole said it, we've been doing work. And one thing you live in Harlem, especially if you're a community person, a leader, a business owner, entrepreneur, is it's always about community. It's very little about the other stuff. So the festival itself, as we mentioned, is 3 days. After 3 days, it's over. But the community is still here and they'll be affected. So we thought, it was just natural, like breathing for us, that we had to say we have a great opportunity. Why we're going to make sure that this community benefits. That was the whole point of how I grew up. I grew up in a thriving community that helped us. I'm where I'm at because of a lot of mom and pops that made sure that I went through certain stages through my life. That things that were, needed, my mother might have needed, it came from business owners. They said, this is an investment. We're investing in this young man. And we're going to make sure that this person who came, born and raised in our community, thrives. We see his development. And so we thought, we're going to do the exact same thing, in our way, and take what we have and make sure that these three pillars that you talked about, the health equity part of it, and the economics as well as youth development, were taken care of. Because without those three, you don't have a community. The youth is our future, right? And if you're not well, then you don't have a future. Health is wealth, right? And then you need to survive. That's something, Nicole talked, about in terms of what we have to take control of our circumstance, right? It's us that have to do this. And so we knew from the very beginning that having a foundation, nonprofit foundation, that we're going to look to making sure that our community was taken care of.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. It's, they're all three tied in a way that, we talk about it, loosely, but to form a strategy around it, uh, and to make it, something that is, um, we will ensure, I mean, we've gone so far as to, this is language that's in our bylaws. It's in the documentation of the festival. So there is no chance in the future that anyone else could come in from inside or outside the community, and change the mission of this. And so, this is the way we have to think as a community. This is how we ensure that 10 years, 20 years, 50 years from now, I mean, I'm raising my daughter here. Musa has a daughter. When they're older, we want them to be able to look back and say, one, my parents did this, but two, there's still the Harlem that we know and love. It still exists. And you have to be proactive. People talk about a lot of stuff, but you got to show up, and put people in place, leadership in place, strategies in place. You've got to be visionary and think. You've got to be thinking 3 steps ahead. What could someone potentially do a year from now, 5 years from now, that could, impede the progress, and then put those plans in place now. And so, as a community, things like, you know, having attorneys, involved from the very beginning as you're building out your strategy.
Mhm.
That's not something that we think about. People think, oh, I need an attorney because I need this document filed. No, they're part of the team that is building your strategy because they help you build the infrastructure for your strategy. So it's these things, as we said before. I mean, this has been the goal from the very beginning, and some of it is from lessons learned. Musa and I, there are businesses that have failed. Failure is not a bad thing.
Mhm.
Failure teaches you, right? You fail so that you succeed. So the community support has been amazing, and we are giving them a seat at the table. This year is interesting. It's 2023. I often refer to it as sort of the Harlem Festival of Culture Special Edition, because it is really centered around, the anniversary of hip hop. Everybody's talking about it. A lot of the programming is centered around it. And so this year, the festival is really focused on that. But next year is the 55th anniversary of the original. So for us, there's a lot of opportunity to really bring the community to the table so we can dream together of what the vision is for
Yeah,
this.
and so what I love that you said is the planning, all of the parts that you bring together, lawyers and thinking 2 and 3 steps ahead, and that's something that's really important in our communities because you know, guys, things are being rolled back every breath we take. We look up and Roe v. Wade was taken, was all of a sudden that was taken back. The court reversed that. Now we got the Harvard's admissions. They're talking about whether or not we should actually have affirmative action when one of the justices sitting on the seat, two now sitting on the seat, know that they benefited, and one is clearly she benefited. Ketanji Jackson's like, hey, I know I benefited, and this is crazy for us not to. So things are happening when we don't have control, when we don't have the ownership, when we're not the ones running the ship, then we're privy to like whatever. I mean, we're not privy. We have to succumb to what happens to us. But when we are the owners of this, when we're the ones running the ship and we put that infrastructure in place correctly, then we become the masters of our fate. So that's why this is so important, that you guys of Harlem, newest and oldest in the generations that you are, right? The two literally polar opposites, but the same. Um,
Mhm.
that
Very
are
much.
bringing this to Harlem, and it all the ways possible. It is that 360 moment, and all the ways possible. It's all the pieces that's needed. So it's such a wonderful thing. So I'm gonna end this interview by asking, when is the festival? And how can people get tickets? Because they need to be at this festival. I don't care where you live. I don't care where you're chiming in from. This is historical. So you all need to be planning to get here to Harlem. And I'm going to let them tell you when you can be here, why you need to get here, and well, I told you why, and how you can get your tickets.
Uh, uh,
Go ahead, Musa.
July 28th through the 30th. It's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's on Randall's Island, which is East Harlem, and a multi-day festival with incredible acts, as Nicole mentioned. It's a little nod to Hip Hop 50. So we have ASAP Ferg. We have many Harlemites that will be performing, from ASAP Ferg to Tiana Taylor to Dougie Fresh, Cameron, amongst others. And it's an incredible festival. You can get your tickets at Harlem Festival of Culture.com. Go to tickets. If you are a Harlem resident in the Harlem community and you can show proof of ID or whatever that, it's $75 a day. We made it affordable for people in the community to come through. And others, and there's VIP passes, there's weekend bundles. Thank you so much for putting that up. So it's harlemfestivalculture.com. Go to tickets, and it'll take you to different pricings and obviously different, acts. So different days have different artists that you can, but you can do all the whole weekend because it's going to be exciting. It's history making. Can't say that enough. We're bringing it back after 54 years, so you'll be a part of that. You'll be a
What's also
part of that.
What's
Yes.
also great is that the Harlem flavor is being infused in it. I mean, for all the national artists that we
Yep.
have local Harlem talent that's going to be opening acts for the national artists. So we're going to, really provide a showcase for our local talent to shine. And then our Mart 125 marketplace. And Mart 125 is for people from Harlem or around the world. Also, Mart 125 is a historic landmark, if you will, a marketplace that existed for decades in Harlem. And so this is our homage to Mart 125 with our marketplace that'll feature local Harlem-based businesses, food, beverage, merchandise vendors. So there's going to be a thriving marketplace, for the businesses. We've got local talent that's going to be performing on the main stage, in addition to, national talent. So it is 3 days of celebrating just our culture as a people and Harlem culture And so we hope people get tickets and join us for a day or for the weekend. There's a little something different every day going on. So we're excited about that.
And I'm actually going to put out there that if you guys can't make it, let's say you just, you know what, those 3 days I have something going on, I'm traveling, whatever the case is. There's a couple of ways you can get involved. We're also going to be doing this campaign where you can give to the foundation so that we can get residents to the festival. So we definitely want you to be able to go to Harlem Festival of Culture, but know about Harlem Festival of Culture Foundation as well, because if you want to donate so that you have a company, you have an organization, you guys want to donate so that you can actually send some Harlem residents to this festival after all of these years, guess what? You can get involved. The other thing is there is a Harlem Festival of Culture, Harlem Festival of Culture bundle package. There's this merchandise that we hadn't even talked about that was a part of the economic strategy where we had a local Harlem artist. Amazing. What was the young man's name, Nicola?
Daquan Cherry.
And Daquan.
Yeah, Daquan Cherry.
Daquan Cherry, you all look this. First of all, look him up. You're gonna see his name in lights, okay? But he developed the bundle, and it's a jean jacket, it's some boots, and it's a fanny pack. And Steve Madden, you guys have no idea, was an amazing sponsor of this event. Where he took the finalists, they all went to go to the factory. They got to pick out their own materials. They got to create. When I tell you, it was an amazing experience for these young people. And they had two winners. One was the overall winner, and then one was the crowd favorite, who's actually also making a t-shirt. So you can actually even go in and buy merchandise if you can't get to the festival. Because again, this is historic. I don't know how many times I can say that. This thing is something that has been in the making for 50 years, that was forgotten about. And now the last 2 years, we've been working on it. But you can be a part of it if you're not there for those 3 days. If you can get there for one, come on out. But if you can't, you can send money so that we can get others there. You can get merchandise so that you can say, yes, I support Harlem Festival of Culture. There's lots of ways to get involved. So you guys,
Yolanda, thank you actually for that. The merchandise will be available on the foundation website, which is hfcfoundation.org. So thank you for mentioning that. And it'll go live next week. So we hope that people will, purchase, and then also, but they can go to the hfcfoundation.org site today if they want to donate, so we can send the residents so thank you for that.
Absolutely. So the time went so fast. So there's our website. We want you guys to go on and donate, and then go looking in there in the next week so you can get your merchandise. And so, this is something I do every month, just different topics, especially the things that are affected us in our health. But I thought this was really important for us to end and have talk about this month, because this particular festival, again, it's a means of healing for our community. And these wonderful visionaries have brought this to us. I'm going to end on this note. I always bring you guys my Plan for Keeps cards. And so I pulled a random card today, and I pulled the 3 of Spades. And what was the 3 of Spades? The 3 of Spades is consume more water this week. I'm talking about this because we are having record-breaking heat advisories in all of the states, right? I read that in Tahoka, Texas, on June 22nd, it was 116 degrees Fahrenheit. So it has been crazy hot. Also, you all know that the Canada wildfires are going on. So this is important for you to drink plenty of water. It helps detox your system, but it also helps you replenish and get the water in. So the adult body is comprised of 70% water. It's higher in men than in women, up to 75% in infants. So if your children are out there, your babies are out there, make sure you're giving them lots of water while you're out. Pet owners, please don't go anywhere without water for your pets. The average adult male is said to lose approximately 2.5 liters of water passively each day. For women, we lose about 2.1 liters of water, and this is through our lungs, our water vapor, just from talking, from breathing, through our skin perspiration, if you're exercising specifically, and then just our kidney output, right, from urine. To avoid the symptoms of even mild dehydration, we have to, and you'll find that those symptoms are irritability, lack of concentration, reduced mental functioning. It's best to give yourself these fluids to rehydrate. And a lot of times we want to eat when we actually scientifically, studies say we're actually thirsty. So sometimes you're finding yourself hungry and snacking. You might be thirsty, and it's on a cellular level. A lot of us are dehydrated. So drink plenty of water. So I'm going to end on that note. I'm going to thank my guests again, Mr. Musa Jackson. This is the Harlem ambassador. He didn't talk even that much about that, but this man is known as a Harlem ambassador and has a digital magazine. It's phenomenal. You got to hear about it. Look him up. And then my bestie here, Nakoa Evans Hendricks, who is an amazing consultant on her own. With she has a BNP Consulting. She, like she said, she owns. She's the owner of a restaurant. I mean, I'm not sure what this woman doesn't do, but between the two of them, they got it all covered. And you guys will have an amazing time at the festival. So we want to make sure that you get your tickets. HarlemFestivalCulture.com. Go get your tickets, or go to HFC Foundation, and you can donate so we can get other people there, or you can get your merchandise, even if you can't go, and be a part of history. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye, guys.